let's talk a little bit more about branding.
Yeah.
What's in B2B healthcare marketing? What's going on with branding? Because I feel like for a while there, it was easy to like spit out a brand that felt really coherent and unique and clever and cute and quirky, but didn't have any teeth. And then other brands are sort of drifting and they're changing and they're sort of more defined by what's happening around them and not sort of a strong, confident, clear, self-directed message. But what are you seeing? It's not our work though. We're more channel management and we're
Mm-hmm.
we're a little bit of a step removed and downstream a little bit, I think, from a lot of the work that you do. And
Mm-hmm.
so what's going on with branding right now? How important is it? And what's changing with B2B healthcare branding right now?
Yeah. Well, I do think our niche is really helping healthcare B2B brands tell their stories. And so much about branding is what's the story you're telling and are you talking about we spend a lot of time, talking about like are you just telling the market all about your products and, the features of your products or are you actually telling them of the value that you're bringing? Are you helping educate the market and your buyers about how they should be thinking about marketing, branding, PR? How do you buy these? How do you decide who to work with to help do that? How do you decide which channels to use? How do you decide which tactics to use? It's those kinds of things. But I mean, honestly, I think that branding is more important than ever in B2B healthcare marketing because there's just so much disruption and so many, like you said, so many new brands hitting the market seemingly every single
Hmm.
day. And the interesting part there is, a lot of times when you look at which brands, you know, it could be a brand new company that's got a lot of funding and they spend a lot of money on marketing. So they make a big splash.
Mm.
They've not gotten $1 of revenue and may never, but they get all kinds of press, or you see them everywhere and they're like their brand is just so impressive. So in that instance, making a brand investment and doing it right out of the gate, if you can afford it, it can make a big difference, and you might get acquired within a year or 2 years, maybe with no revenue. um, so there's a lot of strength in brand in that way, in that regard. Most brands don't have that kind of money, at launch, but there are so many, especially digital health. That market has cooled a lot in the past year in terms of
Hmm.
funding, but there's still a lot of funding available, and there's still a lot of new brands coming to market, new solutions coming to market. But the other thing about branding is all of this, and you kind of touched on it, it's like, and we kind of mentioned it earlier about extreme consolidation going on in healthcare. There's just a ton of mergers and acquisitions, and even the most established brands that you can think of in healthcare are in a position of needing to redefine their brand to the market because of what I talked about earlier, which is they have changed so much. They've acquired new companies, acquired new capabilities. They've pivoted on their vision, and a lot of pivots out of COVID. So their brand needs to catch up, and they really need to rethink and retell their story. And that's a huge ask, especially, we run into a lot of time with clients. It's as much as an inside job as an outside job because
Mm.
of all that, that you think about integrating a whole new company, or maybe your brand has just gone out and bought 4 new companies. There's a lot involved in that and a lot involved in getting everybody on the same page, understanding what do you even offer.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about, when you rebrand or just even reposition, you really have to educate your internal audiences, your internal brand ambassadors, as much as your external. And that process in and of itself really helps get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, so there's some really good sound bites in there. I'm hearing a couple of big things. Not everyone's moved out of sales speak and into branding.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of sales content making its way. And I would say that resonates for us as well. Even just digital marketing channels, just trying to beat the us, me out of the headlines,
Yeah.
and get companies to think in terms of what's really the Donald Miller kind of story brand approach.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
the hero of the story? Okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's not talk about us. Let's talk about them a little bit. But then
That's a lot
also,
harder. It's a lot harder.
yeah. Yeah, it is. It is harder. It's harder to get into that mindset and show up there and bring something of value to that conversation when you actually have to work harder to get yourself on that side of the table, not just, hey, we developed all this great software. Let me tell you about these features that you're never going to use, because
Right.
it's over engineered. Yeah. And the other big thing is, yeah, so much activity right now.
Mhm.
So many mergers and acquisitions. I feel that the entire industry is going through this upheaval, almost like remote work with commercial real estate. If a few people are doing it, they're more cost competitive. And so suddenly everybody has to go remote work if it's possible because they're under that cost pressure. Well, if you're a medical practice working independently and everybody else is run by some sort of streamlined healthcare roll up, suddenly you're at a disadvantage if you've just got one map pin and your nearest competitor has 50 and they're run by this big organization that's very streamlined. So yeah, that's a lot of rethinking and a lot of shifting that's happening in the marketplace right now.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.